All right, so today I'd like to tell you about the history of this country. Everybody know what country this is? Yeah, that's all right. How about now? Give me a hand. What country is this? Anybody know? Okay, I thought you guys would get this one. This is Ethiopia. If you're like me, you probably have some. If you probably don't have a lot of knowledge, but you probably have some strong associations with the word Ethiopia. I would think of words like poverty, of famine, of despair even, and you probably just don't know very much beyond that. And it's true that Ethiopia struggled with famine. And Kay Jansen and M. Harris wrote in their 1990 book that was called The Ethiopian Famine, that the famous famine in the 1980s that the big concert was held to give aid to, was the worst in the country's history, and hundreds of thousands of people died. This event was tragic and brutally significant, but this cannot be the only image we have of Ethiopia. I'm here today to tell you about the ancient and proud story of these people and the country that they share. So the story of Ethiopia begins more than 2,000 years ago with the kingdom of Aksum. Aksum was a blending of cultures and technologies. Arabs brought techniques for irrigation, for the plowing of land, and architecture and writing, and African people brought domesticated crops and animals. And Rodolfo Fadovich and Catherine Bard wrote in their 2001 book, The Proto-Aksumite Period, an overview, that the Red Sea is, for a long time, been a center of trade, international trade, and that this has supported many cultures and civilizations that have come and gone over hundreds of years. But starting around the year 300, starting around 300 years before the Common Era, trade between Europe and Africa and Asia really began to escalate. And Aksum found itself perfectly poised in the center of all those trade routes to take advantage of this. So they didn't immediately conquer the area. They slowly established dominance over hundreds of years. They would absorb a city-state or push back an old kingdom. And as trade just grew and grew, Aksum became more and more powerful. Especially as Rome became more powerful in the area and expanded into areas like Egypt and Jerusalem, Aksum found itself with a powerful ally. So not only were they close trade partners, but they were partners in religion, because as both the Eastern Roman Empire and Aksum were Christian countries. And even to this day, according to a U.S. State Department report, 45% of Ethiopians identify as Orthodox Christian. So this golden age around the year 300, would continue on for another 400 years, was characterized by some incredible achievements. M.J. Mukhtar wrote in his 1990 book, Ancient Civilizations of Africa, that Aksum was the first African country to coin its own, or to mint its own coins. These coins were sophisticated and clearly meant to facilitate international trade. They followed Roman weight standards, and they were inscribed with Greek lettering that served as a sort of international trade language at the time. So, in addition to these coins, they also began to build monumental architecture. Many of these were stone towers that were sometimes more than 100 feet tall, and they were built to honor a significant person who had died, and they were all inscribed with the story of that person's life. And many of them still stand to this day. So the decline of the Aksumite Empire began around the year 700 and was brought around by a combination of things. Their powerful ally, the Eastern Roman Empire, was in decline, and Islam was on the rise, which left the Christian kingdom of Aksum isolated from their allies and cut off from international trade. So this, in combination with some climatic changes that impacted agriculture and depletion of natural resources, which impeded them from trading, led the capital city of Aksum forced the capital city of Aksum to be abandoned. This forced the Aksumite Empire to abandon the coasts, which had brought in so much wealth for so long, and they were forced to retreat back into the Ethiopian highlands. This was the end of the Aksumite Empire, but the people and the government would actually continue on for hundreds of years, and the last Ethiopian emperor was overthrown in the year 1974 in a military coup by his own people. It's actually, this government is largely seen as responsible for the famine for the famine in the 1980s. So today, the story of Ethiopia is one of hope. According to the CIA, the country is growing quickly with a low unemployment rate, a very low income inequality, and a GDP growth rate that was larger than 10% in 2 of the last 3 years. So the famine in 1985 was tragic. But we cannot let it define these people. Ethiopia has a very long history and a bright future, and it seems to me that they are ready for their next golden age.